Hello everybody, thank you very much for joining me today. Just wanted to put this comic book up, The Tales of Suspense number 53. It's a early second appearance of the Black Widow. And if you're wondering why I have this comic book up already, I just picked this up, so I thought I might as well show it off. I love early Silver Age comic books, especially some key ones. And the reason why I have this up is this is not a typical unboxing or pickup haul video that you might have seen me do in the past. This is more of, I'm just putting this up there, and I'll change comic books so once in a while, so you guys have something to look at that isn't just me rambling off in the background and having nothing changing in the foreground, right? So that's what this is about. And so if you're thinking otherwise, that this is another a haul video or whatnot, just want to make sure that you guys are not deceived by this, and you guys have a chance to walk away or tune out if you so desired. Okay, basically what we're going to be talking about today is one of the concerns of mine in the comic book industry, and that is people comparing grading companies and some of the things about that subject. Now, also a second warning on this, since I don't have a title for this, to be honest, I don't have a title for this video just yet. I don't know how you will perceive coming into it. So if you're thinking that this is a rant, like a hate video of, let's say, towards grading companies or somebody in particular, or slabs, hating slabs or raws, that's not what this is about, okay? And so if that's what you're expecting and that's what you're wanting to see, you've been warned. That's not what you're going to be getting here. It's just me going to be talking about some of the things that I think is important, that might be of a warning, service of warning to other people, that could use a different perspective on things. Okay, and as well, I will warn you that since I don't have a script per se of how this is all going to go down and how long this video is going to be, this could take a while. So if you're not prepared to to sit through that, and I don't want to just suck you in thinking hey, he wants to talk about this and it's going to be a quick 5-minute video. I doubt it. Okay, I don't know how long this is going to take, but I know for a fact it's probably going to take a little while for me to go through this and explain my point of view. Okay, so that's why I just wanted to give you guys a chance to that if you're not prepared to sit through the time it takes for me to cover this video, you have been warned. All right, so for the rest of you who are interested in what I have to say, and maybe we'll talk about this subject, you can come on back after a short video intro. See you then. Okay, for those of you who have stuck around and want to hear more, Comic Sniper here, along with my trusty sidekick Mark III, my lovable flying Iron Man, and we thank you very much for joining us today to talk about this subject. Now, I know there was probably I already made an intro title after that you have seen already, so that's usually the way I'll put things together. So whatever the title is, hopefully it's not deceiving for you guys. Okay, let's just gonna like I said, I'm just gonna change up some of the comic books. There's really nothing in particular. I'll just put something up. This is A Force #1, just a cool book by J. Scott Campbell. But anyways, regarding the subject of this video and how long it's going to take, again, just a second warning for everybody who's thinking that this is going to be a short video or going to be a rant video. This is not. Okay, but I do want to talk about grading companies and the people who compare the different grading companies and pit them up against each other. Okay, specifically the ones, and I've seen a few of these videos before, and as well as they keep coming up every once in a while, and I've kind of gotten to thinking that, you know, this is a bit of a shame, and people are kind of wasting money, right, doing this comparison. And I'll tell you why I think that. But before we go into the actual grading companies and you know where I think that's going to go, I think it deserves to look at what people are doing, okay, that has got me to want to make this video. So the reason why I've noticed that lately for the past little while, even, you know, people have been comparing PGX books versus CBCS versus CGC, and, you know, they're going into conclusions based on the grades that a comic book has been given, okay, and any given comic book based on let's say a certain grade of 7.5, how, let's say, CGC's 7.5 is different from PGX's 7.5, or CBCS's grade of 7.5 looks different from, let's say, CGC or PGX, and vice versa, right? And then they would draw the conclusion of one, let's say CGC is stricter, or PGX is more lenient, or CBCS doesn't know what they're doing, or blah blah blah. You know, that's not the standard. Well, my point of view on this is there is no standard, okay, with regards to comparison of each company, okay, because at the end of the day, each company is different, and I'll go into to some reasons why that is the case, because and people have been actually to the point where people have been unslabbing, you know, their books, and then resubmitting to different companies in the thought of, hey, you know, if I get a grade with PGX and then I resubmit with CBCS, and I get that same book gets a different grade, or lower grade or higher grade, it shows how one is not as good or better than the other, okay? Or they will submit from, let's say, CGC to, you know, CBCS, or vice versa, and then they would draw the conclusion that, see, one company, based on how lower or higher the grade is, they'll draw a conclusion based on that, saying what one is better than the other, or has a higher standard, or whatnot. Well, that, to me, I've started, and at first really I thought, well, kind of interesting video, right? I watched them. I've been watching quite a few of them for the last little while, and I've come to the conclusion that, you know what, these people are losing money for no reason by doing this, okay? All they're doing is really just wasting their money, giving it to the grading companies with no real justifications as to why you would actually get those, okay? And then people would watch these videos and think, wow, you know, there you go, see, that makes sense, see, that's why I knew they were not as good a company as one or the other, right? And they would kind of most of the time, people who will justify their, you know, bias against another company, and just because they have loyalty to one, and then they will use that video to say, you know, see, based on a pure comparison, there is the problem, and that's why that is so. Well, you know, it took me a little while to figure it out, but I always knew that there was a flaw in that thinking, and for the most part that is follower thinking, and it took me a little while until I figured out why that is the case, and I'm going to share that with you today, okay? But first, let's look at each company a little bit, and why do we even have grading companies? Okay, now grading companies showed up when back in the day, and I've been around long enough. Believe you me, I've been around long enough. I've collected, not so far as a Silver Age back, when I was a kid, but more of a, in the 70s and so forth. That's when I got into comic books. And one of the things about buying and selling comic books is, if you've ever, this was more prominent back in the day, I guess it would happen, later too, is whenever you go to buy a comic book or to sell a comic book, the guessing game would start as to the grade of a comic book, right? I would look at it and I would say, wow, this is, and the term near mint has been around as far as I can remember. Not so much the VG and VF and that kind of stuff, or the grade of the numbering grading, like the 10-point grading system. That didn't really come around until CGC. But back in the thing, the term near mint really was everywhere. And being young, especially as a young boy, when you go to buy or sell something, the comic book, whoever you were talking to, especially if they were older than you, they would use that as, I've been around for a long time and I know for a fact that this is a near mint comic book, and that's you can take my word for it, right? Or you would say, well, this has that defect on it. Well, they don't count that, based on every book's going to have that, right? So they would, of course, use that, use whatever term, and then to make it so that they will sell it to you at a higher price or a listed price. Sometimes they have listing in the middle of the book. If you've ever seen those, or use the Overstreet Guides listing to base on whatever grade that they give it, so that they can get the best money they can for it. And rightfully so. It's their comic book. They can actually ask whatever they want for it, right? But they would justify that. And if I was to sell my comic book to them, or trade my comic book to them, it would be evaluated based on who could convince the other person as to what a typical grade of that comic would be to them, right? So that was the atmosphere, and that was the culture, which we grew up in, and for a very long time that's how we went. And of course there was a lot of frustration with that, with regards to how things went and how things were being sold. Okay, so that's why comic book grading companies came about, because of the frustration, the inconsistencies. Because of course everybody wanted to, if you're selling your comic book, you wanted to sell it for a higher price as much as you can, right? And of course you're gonna talk up your comic book. It just makes more sense. It just makes sense that way. And of course, if you're selling, you wanna, and if you're buying something, you wanna kind of talk it down. You wanna point out the flaws, and you wanna see if you can get that price down to the lowest price you can acquire that book for. Okay. And all this, and since there was no standard in the marketplace, people were all over the place, right? And to the point, I recall, I still specifically remember, going to my LCS and wanting to sell a stack of books, and he would just go through them all. I remember this specifically. He would just like rifle through them all. I knew there was some good keys in there, some more valuable comic books, as well as some fillers. And then he would assign a blanket grade to all of them. Well, they're all, good condition. I'll give you this much for them. I'm going, hey, but what about the, well, that's what I'll, that's what this stack is worth, regardless of, well, how about if I take this out? Then we would start to talk about the grade of that comic book if I wanted to pull out a key. and I remember, thinking, man, this got to be a better way. And of course, that's when the grading companies, CGC specifically, started up, and they wanted to put a stop to that, to the guessing game, right? And then and that way people had a more fair playing field when it comes to buying and selling comic books. So now, fast forward to today, right? A lot of people, of course, that's a normal thing nowadays to to see slab books, and I think it's a wonderful thing. I've used it myself, and we have predominantly 3 grading companies. We have CGC, PGX, and CBCS. Okay. Let me start by saying I don't have loyalty. If you've ever watched any of my videos, I will tell you right now, I've said it before in any of them, I do not have a loyalty to any one of them. I think they all have their merits and they all have their flaws. The reason why I recommend people not to have a brand loyalty, is because A, they have no loyalty to you. Okay, you are just a number and a customer to them, and really, if you went somewhere else, it wouldn't change their life. Okay, now that's not what they want. Of course, they want to do a good job. They're a business like everything else, but no business is really ever loyal to their customer, because really, that's all they're really looking for is your money, right? That's what they need. That's, as a business owner myself, I love my customers, but at the end of the day, I can only do what I can do, but I have no loyalty to a single customer. Okay, you don't want to be biased to a customer. That's what that is. So therefore, why should you be biased to them? That doesn't mean you should hate them, or that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that give your business to whoever does the best job for you at the price that will work for you. Okay, and if that's how competition starts, that's how you end things like monopolies, and it also brings out the best in companies, because they are willing to compete with each other to come up with better products and to give it to you at a lower price, because they want your business. And if you do that, and if people are willing to move around from one company to another, okay, then that means, and have no brand loyalty, what makes companies complacent and become lazy is people blindly, just because things like this, say for instance Nike, I'm just throwing a name, or Apple, or whatever, you can say this to Sony, right? They will buy because of the name only, not because they are having the best product, or they have the the latest and greatest, or they have the best price. They will pay for the name, and they will follow blindly because of the name. That's wrong, because once, let's say for instance Nike becomes the sole sneaker manufacturer, well, what's to stop them from making crappy products and you still buy them at whatever price they want to set it at, right? So that's what I'm talking about. That's just an example. So just an example of me putting my money where my mouth is. Of course, this is my copy of Silver Surfer #1, and this is right CGC. Okay, and I also buy and sell. I have used all 3. I've also bought, and I've also submitted to CBCS, based on what I need at the time and how good they are at the time, right? They earn your money, they earn your business, they earn your patronage, right? And of course, same with PGX. Okay, so that's why when I say, now if you've ever watched my videos, you'll know that based on my videos, I have more CGC graded comic books, and that's only because at the time when I'm doing that, they are giving me the most value for what I need to do for my comic books. If it was PGX that was doing the same, that could give me the most value of what I needed to do, that they would have all of my business, okay, at that time. Or same with CGC or CBCS, okay. So that's why brand loyalty, I believe, is not a good thing to be doing. Now, again, it's your money. I'm not telling you should, but I'm giving you examples of why you shouldn't. Okay, you make up your own mind. You're all adults. You all have your own money. It's not for me to tell you. Okay. Now, when it comes to people, what's that again? Comparing the three grading companies, they would say like that this is Detective Comics 359, PGX 4.0. And they said, well, if you ever submit this to CBCS or CGC, PGX is overgrading, and this will only get you like a 3.0 there, that kind of stuff. And some people even crack this open just to, you know, what they paid for or what they bought it for. They'll crack it open, they'll send it to CGC or CBCS and get whatever grade, and then they'll do a reveal on it and say, see, it got a 2.5 or it got a 4. So even if it got a grade up, it would be like, see, they don't know what they're doing. Not that anybody who's ever gotten, you know, including myself, they would get grades back from their comic books, and you know, based on their predictions, they would get a higher grade back, and they would go, oh wow, that's great. But they would never, you know, they wouldn't criticize the company based on the fact that they got a better grade. They only criticize when they get a bad grade. Right? See how funny how that goes, right? You know, oh well, you know, I grade down, right? But then when they get a lower grade than they actually think, it was like, well, this is not, you know, something must have happened that terrible, or you know, they don't know what they're doing. They might have been asleep at the switch on this one, right? Now, let's face it, comparing companies to each other is terrible. That's a terrible idea, and it's not accurate, and it has no bearing on what each company is as far as their, you know, integrity or their how good they are or whatnot. Okay, how good they are, it should be based on their own merit on each comic, based on how they do. Basically, it's the encapsulation. How good is the label, right? Did they do a good job preserving the comic the way you submitted it? Okay, is the plastic, the encapsulation, is it clear? Okay, does it come back in a reasonable time? That kind of stuff. Those are quantifiable things based on, you know, based on each of them on their own company, not against each other. And let me tell you why. Okay, first of all, people say that, you know, their grading is more accurate. That's a false statement, because grading is very subjective, for one. Okay, everybody says this. You must have heard that 1,000 times. It is, grading is subjective. There is no such thing as, you know, a perfect grade for everything. I'm not talking about a 10.0. I'm talking about a company that can grade exactly the same every time, even against themselves. And this has been proven time and time again. Even to something as the grade, the easiest thing to grade would probably be the highest grade. Like a 10.0 would have nothing on it. It'd be perfect all around, and absolutely no flaw on the comic, whether it's reproduction, production defects or man-made defects or anything. It's just perfect. So if you see nothing on it, if there is nothing on it, and it is a perfect comic, then it's a 10, right? The lower it gets, 9.0, 8.5, 6.0, the more defects there is, the harder it is actually to grade the comics, because now you're talking about cumulative and amount of, or the type of damage there is to the comic book, whether they are production man-made, whether they're restorations, all that takes into effect, and that becomes harder and harder as the lower grades goes on, notwithstanding things like incomplete. Okay, when it gets down to that level where it's like, well, if you only have the cover, well, you get incomplete. Okay, now the rest of it, everything in between, butt kiss. As far as you know, people say, well, I've been grading for 30 years. It doesn't matter how long you've been grading for. It doesn't matter if you've been grading for 2 months or 20 years. Okay, it's the fact of the matter is, it's all best guess. Okay, people will not be able to predict whatever grade that they're going to get with 100% accuracy, unless you are the actual person grading that comic book and the only person that's going to put that number on there and actually put it in the slab, because that's the only way you're going to be able to do that. Otherwise, I call it the best guess. That's all it is. You could be right a lot of the times, right? But that doesn't mean you actually can grade or you know how to grade. You just know how to guess your grade. I have guessed many times correct, and I have guessed wrong as well. Okay, so therefore it is best guess, and until people kind of understand that and take that into consideration, then you're susceptible to people telling you that they know how to grade because they claim that they've been doing it forever. No CGC is going to tell them, or CBCS or PGX is going to tell them how to grade. Okay. Now, and they say, well, I always grade down my comic books. If you know your grade, this is the other this is the other chuckle that I get when I hear this from other people when they say this. If you know you're grading down your comic books, why are you intentionally giving away money? Because if you knew 100% that this book would be a 4.0, why would you sell it at a 3.0 level? Because you say, oh, just to be an honest person. Well, you're not being honest. You're grading down because you honestly don't think that this is a 3.0. You actually think it's a 4.0. You're just grading it down. Now, maybe it should change this. Right? You just said you grade down. So therefore, you're not being honest with yourself, and you're not being honest with the people you're selling or buying with. Basically, because you're saying you don't actually believe yourself, right? And even you're not. If that's the case, you're grading it down. And people say, well, I give allowances in case I'm wrong. Well, exactly. That means you are guessing, and everybody is too, including myself. I plant myself squarely in the middle of this whole thing. So guys, please, I'm not trying to hold myself above anybody or trying to say I'm better than anybody. All I'm saying, I'm trying to tell the truth as far as what people are saying and how to determine what they're saying and how to decipher what people are saying when it comes to their claims as to their validity. Okay, now people will say, okay, back to the grading companies. Okay, let's face it, people, grading companies are in business. Okay, and then their business is not to give you as best grade as they can. Their business, like any other business, and I've owned businesses myself, and I know this for a fact because of my business. Okay, businesses are there to make money, plain and simple. If people are there to do only good for the world, okay, they would be a non-profit organization. They would be like, I don't know, PETA or something like that, right? But imagine none of those as well will give you anything for free. Okay, based on the fact that people have to eat. Okay, they don't do this out of the goodness of their own heart, because at the end of the day, somebody's got to pay rent, electricity bills have to get paid. Okay, the employees will not work for free, nor will the grocery guy give you food for free based on the fact that you've been doing a good thing and giving comic grading away for free. Okay, they have to make money. Okay, and people who say, well, that's just a cash grab and this and that, yes, it's a way for them to give a service to people that want this service, and they get paid for it. Pure and simple. Okay, that's why capitalism is so great. That's why people, it's called freedom of supply and demand. Now, if they're doing a crappy job, let's say they give you cracked cases all the time or whatever, or God forbid it comes back with no grade or something like that, the worse job that they do, the less people will go to them, and therefore they will not be in business. Okay, but people are, if they're in business and they're profitable, that's a good thing, because they can care. If they're not profitable, they can't keep their doors open. How are they going to pay their bills, and how are they going to feed their kids? Okay, they have to move on. The only way a company can keep doing what it's doing, if it's doing a good thing, is for you to support them and give them your business. So therefore they have to be profitable, they have to be able to take your money, and they have to be able to, so that they can keep doing the thing that people want them to do. That's called free enterprise, guys. Okay, understand that. And if you understand that, you will not be judgmental of the fact that these companies are making money. So they're not there to give, their business is grading companies, but their intention is to make money. Okay, that's the main intention. So if their intention is to make money, how they make that money is gonna be, you're the judge of that. Okay, now back in the day, let's go back a little bit here. Back in the day when this all started up, and of course people are finding their footing as to how to grade and stuff, there was an overstreet guide. Okay, now an overstreet guide basically is, I wonder if I still have it now. I did, okay, yeah, let me see if I can pull it up here real quick, and I'll just put this one aside.